Well, in the meantime, we'll get started. There's some projects we can cover and while we wait for other city staff to join. So thanks everybody for attending the Q2 informational webinar about some of the street projects going on around town. My name is Nolan Bergstrom. I work in the Community Planning and Economic Development Department at the City of Kalamazoo. Panelists that'll be on today are Tom Palumbo, who's a senior civil engineer with our public services team, as well as George Waring, another senior civil engineer with our public services team, and Dennis Randolph, our traffic engineer. For those of you, if this is your first time attending one of these sessions, we've been implementing this type of system since last year. And really, they're just meant to be um, a touch point for folks to hear from staff about some of the projects that are ongoing, especially the big projects, answer some questions, and keep folks informed. So generally how these go, we'll start off with some housekeeping items. We already did the panelist introductions. We'll go over the projects, and we'll have a question and answer at the end. With the Zoom webinar, you should see a Q&A function on your tool tab. As an attendee, you can submit questions there, and then we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. One other thing I wanted to point out too is that this is recorded, so once this is completed, the webinar is completed, we'll have it recorded and submitted to the City of Kalamazoo YouTube page. So that's just another way for folks to access this if they weren't able to attend. One other thing I want to point out, and I usually have pointed this out at the end of the webinar, but the city's website has been revamped over the past year, 2 years, and it's a lot more user-friendly than the previous website. We actually have dedicated project pages with announcements and tons of information on projects that are ongoing or coming soon. And you can subscribe to an email list for those projects. And that is one of the best ways to stay informed, especially as some of these projects move through different phases. Here's an example of what that project page kind of looks like when you click on one. And you can find these at kalamazooCity.org, and then navigate to the projects page. And then you can click on the project you're interested in.
Also, I'll add something to that. If you just Google City of Kalamazoo projects, it's the first link that shows up.
Yep. Yep, it's really, really easy to use compared to the previous website. So there's been a lot of work put into this system to make sure that if you really need to find some information about the projects, you can do so. And you can see on this page too that there's announcements as updates come through. So okay. So I want to start broadly with some of the big projects that are coming to the downtown area in the next 4-5 years. Specifically, the two-way conversion projects that I'm sure a lot of folks have been hearing about for a very long time. We're actually breaking ground on the Kalamazoo Avenue project this year, starting with Michical Street. So in the next week and a half, Michical Street's actually going to officially close, which will, besides some of the work that was done on Stadium Drive in the past, will officially kind of kick off the downtown conversion work. And this is phased out, right? So there's going to be updates and changes made to Michical Street. Then the next phase will be West Main and Douglas, the section of West Main that we have ownership over, as well as that small section of Douglas Avenue between Kalamazoo Ave and West Main Street. Um, as all this work is occurring, we're going to be doing the redesign engagement around Michigan Ave with construction coming up next for Michigan Ave. So the idea is we're doing those in pairs, right? So that the system can, um, with as much efficiency as we can, get those two set up to be two-way streets without much of a buffer time between. So we really are hitting these in pairs. And you can see there's also some general information about Lovell and South Street. So those are the other pair of streets that are going to be two-way, and that'll have its own, redesign efforts. And then there's also some work that's going to be done in the future on this section of Stadium Drive, which I'm sure a lot of people are excited to get engaged on, especially since this is such a weird kind of approach as you're coming, you know, down Oakland Drive towards Lovell South and then downtown. So this is actually a screenshot of the map that you would have seen in the city newsletter. So we've been sharing this information quite a bit, just making sure people are informed. Okay. And then moving on to some more downtown work. There's a lot of work right now related to downtown utility upgrades. These are specifically tied to, the future event center in downtown. And all of these projects are kind of being phased out to minimize the impacts to navigating through downtown, although it's definitely um, tough right now because of big projects like Ransom Street, Michical Street, um, to name a few. So some of these projects are being managed by um, utility companies like Consumers Energy. The Michical project and Ransom Street projects are city projects. And this basically gives you uh, a ton of information on the type of work that's happening. This is also available on the city's website for these. It has its own project page where you can actually download these maps if you'd like copies. But all that work is leading to some detouring, right? So we're, some pedestrian detouring, some motorist detouring, at least, through the next couple days, maybe a little bit more. Specifically, that section of Westnedge Ave that needed to be closed for upgrades. So all that to say, businesses are still open. Follow detouring signs and watch for any signage changes. And of course, you can subscribe um, to those email lists for these projects to get updates on that information too. Um, one quick thing that's I wanted to touch base on too as it relates to the Michical work is that during this period the the street itself is going to be closed and we're actually the Elm crossover is going to be closed and will remain closed even after Michical Street opens back up. So basically Elm crossover was placed within the network a long time ago when the one-way system was put in. It's not going to serve a major function with the new um, design of Michical Street, and Michical Street's being converted to two-way as well. So a lot of this was also born out of when we went and did engagement around Kalamazoo Ave. We were in the Stewart neighborhood talking to residents, and there was a lot of folks who were interested in, Elm crossover going away. So this is kind of a confluence of factors, but I wanted to call that out specifically. Um, and with all this work going on the next couple of years, the other thing to draw attention to is that the Kalamazoo River Valley Trail is actually officially detoured for the next few years. Um, because of all the impacts around Michigan Street, West Edge Ave, Kalamazoo Park. Not only the utility work, but just some of our major street projects. So as of right now, this is the official detour map. Pitcher Street and Michigan Ave are protected for folks on bikes, and then Elm Street is being used as a uh, detour route on a low volume, um, low traffic volume street to continue on the trail. So this could be updated based on how projects move forward. So just stay informed on this as well. We've been working a lot with the director of Kalamazoo County Parks to make sure, signage is updated, and that way people can find their way around using the detour. Okay. Um, so no major updates at this point for Ransom Street as far as I'm aware. Tom or George, you're welcome to add any information here. This information is up on the city's website right now. This is kind of showing where the detouring and local business access is in relation to the Ransom Street project. Basically they've been moving westward since the project started up in early spring, and really getting through some of the big intersections. So Burdick, Rose Street, and then, eventually up to Westnedge. So just a reminder, be aware that this work is still continuing, but that there's business signage and wayfinding signage installed so you can find your way to local businesses on the north side. Okay. And I'm going to pass the baton to George Waring to talk a little bit about Westnedge Ave.
Thanks, Dolan. So Westnedge Avenue work continues to keep going on. The most recent update to that is that the Crosstown and Westnedge intersection was closed today. So just traffic should be aware that the detour route, the main detour route for Westnedge traffic is now level to Oakland to continue to proceed south. So just be aware as you approach the level intersection, you should be taking a right on level and heading over to Oakland to keep proceeding south unless you have a local business in the area that's north of Crosstown. Then follow the signage for local traffic. You can still access that area. Work continues on the water main. They've just started to do some curb and gutter and storm work as they've been finishing up the utility work. So as all the utilities are placed onto the project, they're going back behind and doing the restoration in the curb and gutter. With that, paving operations are still planned to take place at the end once all the utility work's been completed.
All right. Similarly, White's Road.
Yep. So White's Road is in much the same spot as Westnedge. White's Road is continuing to lay water main, and then they'll pressure test and fill that, and then make side street connections and connect all the residents back to the new water main as they proceed along. So that work's still progressing along. This project also has currently some new signal pole work going on. So they're putting in new foundations for several of the intersections and getting that prepped. There was a concern about the right turn only island at White's and Oakland and its placement. So our staff has looked into that. The placement of it was correct. However, the vehicle lanes and the layout of the vehicle lanes and the pavement markings does need adjusted. So that's something we're working with the contractors on to implement as that project goes forward.
All right. And then Inkster Street Bridge reconstruction.
Yeah, so Inkster Street Bridge, that one has been going really smoothly, actually. They're ahead of schedule right now. So work on the deck completed. So they finished pouring the deck. That pour went as planned, and it is finishing up its proper cure time frame. They'll be working on the approaches to that bridge, getting those completed. Right now, they're looking to have most of the work done by the 4th of July holiday. That's tentatively when we're looking at opening up Bronson Boulevard to traffic again, as they do just some of the finishing touch work on the remaining bit. But it's gone very well. The contractors performed well out there. So it's going to be a really neat asset for the city.
All right. Tom, you want to talk a little bit about an upcoming project?
Yep, Howard Street. We anticipate it's going to be starting shortly after the 4th of July. And then that'll go for about a month and is going to be finishing up good amount of time before returning students and new students are coming to Western for the fall semester. That's something important on this project with the proximity of Western. This is the section of Howard that runs underneath the bridge to the hockey stadium and underneath that pedestrian bridge also. So, this is for the most part, it's a pretty basic resurfacing project, but we've got a few extra items there, and we're going to be adding a turnaround. That's going to be the most noticeable difference. So that vehicles that are trying to get over to the, I want to say it's the Knollwood neighborhood down there, don't have to go up on West Michigan, but instead can get over to Rogowski and into that neighborhood on over by Redwood Ave there a little bit more easily. So that'll be probably for most people the most noticeable difference to be coming with that project. Something that a recent change that has come up for this is we are looking at entirely closing off traffic for a maximum of 2 weeks on Howard down by the railroad tracks, so that we can get some improvements put in at that railroad crossing. Amtrak has approached us interested in doing some work over there, so we are working with them to try to have that done. Much better to do as part of this project, and especially to do it during the summer break. So that is the plan right now, is to fully close starting July 8, and that's July 8 is a Monday, and that would be a 2-week long closure. So we will be posting more information about that. If you follow this the city projects website, there will be more information on that as that date approaches. And also, we'll make sure that there are message boards going up a minimum of 2 weeks before any full closure begins. Otherwise, there will be 1 lane of traffic maintained in each direction throughout the duration of this project. So outside of any full closure, which we'll notify pretty well of, there will be access along this route.
Awesome. All right. George, did you want to talk about Riverview Drive, the work that just was completed?
Yeah. Thanks, Nolan. So Riverview Drive, they did complete the final paving of the surface and majority of the items on that project. There are still a few items that they still have yet to complete. They have a little bit more restoration and cleanup wise that needs to be done on the project that they'll be completing over the next couple weeks. But that project went relatively smoothly. They got it done within the project window. And there's been a lot of improvements. All of the sidewalk got was redone on Riverview Drive if it was in bad shape. We redid any of the ADA crossings that didn't meet standard, as well as remarked with high emphasis signs and pavement markings the crossing at Hotop, as well as made some safety improvements at the East Michigan and Riverview intersection. Due to some high crash history, due to a dual left turn and a higher speed pork chop island cut through there as well. So we made some of those changes recently. We're still monitoring the crash impacts and the traffic impacts on that, as well as speeds. And so we'll be watching that over the next several years, and to see how that corridor responds to some of the changes made. There'll be some annual pavement marking work that'll occur near the Goal intersection, the intersection of Goal Road and Riverview. So I know some may have seen that some pavement markings there are older and were worn down. Those happen to just be outside the project limits. So those will be done or refreshed on our annual contract. So if there are any concerns with that intersection, all of those pavement markings will get refreshed with that. But that's pretty much it for Riverview Drive.
Awesome. Okay. So those are some of those big local projects. I wanted to turn some attention to some federally funded efforts that are going to have some big impacts alongside some of those local projects. Tom, I was hoping you could touch base a little bit on the Protect grant.
Yeah. You might have heard that the city was awarded $38 million in federal grants for I want to say $45 million project. So we've got some money coming from other sources as well to fund this. What this Protect grant project is going to do is it's going to eliminate floodplain around Arcadia Creek. And when I say eliminate floodplain, that doesn't mean that we're filling it in, that we're raising up the ground or anything like that. That's not a sustainable way to do that, but rather we're going to increase the capacity of the creek. Part of this creek is going to be relocated. Much of it in that orange area that you see there, a significant percentage of that is running underground in pipes. Those pipes are undersized, and just having a creek run underground isn't really a good way to have a creek running through our city or anywhere. So we're gonna do what we call daylighting, which is exactly what it sounds like, bringing that creek above ground in as many places as we can. Obviously, it's still going to need to go under roads, and there's some tight spaces in here where it's going to be hard to daylight, and it might not be feasible. But anywhere that we can, we're going to daylight it, and anywhere we can, we're going to improve the creek to have to resemble a natural creek, bring it back to what nature intended. So that's going to take place over 3 phases or 4 phases if you include what we're calling phase 0, which is actually some work that the event center is doing, but that's going to contribute to this project as well. So what this is going to do is it's going to reduce flooding risk for, there's hundreds of people living in this area. There's a lot of, there's businesses, there's a hotel. You can see the Walgreens on there for reference. There's an apartment building in there. And then obviously Waldo Stadium, as well as the WMU's baseball field is in there. WMU has a few other buildings in there too. So we really want to reduce and completely take away flood risk in this area. And this is going to be a enormous project that is just going to really improve Arcadia Creek and all the water downstream of there and the environment around there too. So this is one that I'm really excited about.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and I'll just, shout out that this was one of the, I think it was the largest federal grant distribution for a project for this work. So, this is
Yep.
pretty big deal for the city, especially with all of the localized flooding issues that we've had in the pretty recent past. So George, did you want to talk a little bit about Safe Streets for All?
Sure. So, Safe Streets for All, this is part of a larger project that is right about $1 million in total. Much of that is federal funds, over 3/4 of it. Federal funds, some other grant match from local grants that was used towards that as well. And what this project is it is part piloting certain proven safety of traffic calming measures. So these are measures that are like speed humps, speed tables, mini traffic circles, um, temporary bump outs, things like that, that are proven measures uh, uh, for traffic calming. So part of the project is doing that. The second part is a safety action plan, which is really the bulk of the effort, which is to develop a safety action plan for the city. So that way we know a couple of things from the data of crash analysis, speeds, intersection identification, and many other facets. We can understand where our most problematic safety concerns are, and then use these different measures to help improve safety initially in the short term through pilot projects, and then plan those into capital projects for long-term safety improvements. So that safety action plan will kind of balance those two things. So doing some quick win initial projects to improve safety, and then also identifying those long-term items that need to get completed as a part of the capital process. So we're working both of those projects right now.
Awesome. Thanks, George. I just wanted to call out here before we, um, conclude the informational portion of the webinar, but we did host a series of open houses around these projects earlier this year, in January, February, and March, to kind of have a touch point with folks on those projects. We are going to be hosting a community update session on June 27th from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Girl Scouts Regional Program and Training Center on Maple Street, sort of to talk about Bronson Boulevard again, and the future of Bronson Boulevard. So would love to watch for more information on that, and feel free to share that information. And then, yeah, that's what the information we have today. If there's any questions, I haven't seen any come through in the question and answer chat. I did want to ask a question related to Riverview. George, you mentioned the slip lane as you're approaching Riverview and East Main intersection. Could you explain kind of some of the work that was done in that area, and why it was updated?
Yeah. So one of the things we were seeing at the intersection with the slip lane was we had a couple additional vehicle on vehicle pedestrian conflicts in that intersection. So that slip lane created a right turn only lane that went on East Michigan. You could traverse it at a high speed, but pedestrians and vehicles had blind spots for a pedestrian trying to cross from Michigan onto Riverview at that intersection if they were proceeding north. On the other side of the viaduct, the railroad viaduct there, you would have to, you could not see a car approaching if you were on the south side of the intersection, and a car couldn't see a pedestrian trying to cross if they were making that right hand turn. And so we've had several near misses in that area, and the city doesn't like to be reactive, so we don't want to wait for a pedestrian to get hit or a fatality to occur. So we had the opportunity, because we had sidewalk work going on, to adjust the radius of the island there to allow for truck traffic to make a right turn at Michigan and Riverview, around the island instead of through that slip lane. And because we increased that radius, we were able to eliminate the slip lane so that way traffic could still make a right-hand turn at the intersection. We would still maintain that right only lane while increasing that safety for pedestrians to cross and proceed north on the Riverview. So making a couple of those updates, and then we also removed the dual left there, which was also problematic with heavy vehicles making a left-hand turn onto East Michigan Avenue that proceeds downtown. We had a lot of side impact, side swipe, side same type crashes as cars would try to cut on the inside of a large vehicle turning and just get into that pinch point of a semi or another vehicle and have a crash. So we had just a high frequency of that. So
Okay.
those were the reasons we made the changes.
Yeah, and the work on Riverview was sort of regular maintenance, and in the future there might be opportunities to go through a redesign process to, you know, do some type of future work, correct?
Correct. So that was a capital preventative maintenance strategy for that road, or a heavy maintenance strategy. So that roadway was the work done there was designed to last 10 to 15 years until we could have that street redesigned. So it's we're hopeful in that in the future, we'll have more conversations with the neighborhood, the businesses, and the traffic there to understand what the needs of that corridor are.
Got it. Okay. Well, at this point, I'm not seeing any questions in our question and answer chat box. So thank you very much for everyone that attended. Again, if you know anybody that wanted to attend and didn't wasn't able to or had a conflict, you can direct them to the city's YouTube page where this will be posted. The recording will be posted, and you can also have them look at past webinars as well if they was a certain item we covered that they missed. But you can always direct comments to 311 about other related projects, and again, visit the city's website and you can subscribe to these projects to make sure you get any email updates about them. With that, thanks everybody and have a great rest of your day.